All right, everybody, thank you for coming. Here we go. And two disclaimers. Firstly, I'm not really allowed to say this, but I love this shit. I had such a journey like going through this. And I mean, it's a really hard Sedra. This is like the second disclaimer. It's a very hard Sedra. It's Moses, it's Moshe being instructed on the building of the Mishkan. And it's like it feels a bit introductory, a bit sort of like a preamble, like so we're going to build the Mishkan, but then it's going to actually happen. And at first glance, you could be forgiven for thinking that there's not much here, but it couldn't be further from the truth. There's magic in this week's Hedra, and let's do this. So let me share with you a few sources over here. Bear with. Share. Can you all see this? Well, I've skipped you halfway down. You can all see this? Hello, Sarah. Can you see this, Sarah? Fantastic. All right, Parsha Pals Terumah, here we go. This week's Edra, so as we were saying before, Moshe is instructed on the building of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, and it's been a long time coming, and we've come out of Egypt, and the past few Sedras have been really fun. You have 10 plagues, and there's action, and there's like miracles, it's awesome, and things are seemingly starting to slow down, but Moshe gets told to build the Mishkan. Now, the focal part of the Mishkan is called the Oren. And anyone who's watched Indiana Jones will know how amazing that will be. And V'asu Aaron Atzei Shittim. This is what the Pasuk says, and I've deliberately not put a translation here for reasons you will see shortly. At the top here, V'asu Aaron Atzei Shittim. You shall make an Oren, an ark made of cedar wood. Amosayim v'chetzi arukov, amov v'chetzi rochba. It should be a cubit and a half this way, a cubit and a half that way. Fine. It'll be a cubit and a half tall. Fantastic. Now, what you're going to make the ark out of? We know its dimensions, and we know that it's got Atzei Shittim, but it says V'tzi pisa Isai Zahav Tahar, you should cover it with pure gold, inside and out. You should cover it. And you should put a sort of a crown around it. Now, if I were to ask you, what's going on here? The simple reading of these verses says you have a wooden box, and it's covered on the inside with gold, and it's covered on the outside with gold. Now, the Kli Yakar learns this differently. He says, read it carefully. Look at the second one here, the second verse. It says, you shall cover it. You should cover it with pure gold, zahav tahar, pure gold on the inside, umechutz, and on the outside of this wooden box, titzapenu. Just cover it with normal gold. That's how he's reading it. There's two types of gold. There's a gold inside, which is pure. And there's gold outside, which is maybe a lower quality. And he says, what's the message? What's the message here of having the inside of pure gold and the outside is maybe a lower quality of gold? What's the message here? And this message is so beautiful and it's so true. And this message, this idea is going to resonate throughout the whole class. It's amazing. He says, what the symbolism here is that something that's on the inside, something that's private, that's hidden from view, that is Zahav Tahar, that is pure gold. But something on the outside, something that's there as a public display, is a slightly lower quality. Meaning, let's think about it, you do something in private, you do something where you're going to get no recognition, no one's going to know you're doing it, that's pure. But something that's on the outside and it's showy and it's flashing, everyone can see it, it might be a good deed and it's still gold, but it's not the same quality. And this idea of something that is internal, that's hidden, that's private, that comes from within you, is not just a central feature of the Oren. It's a central feature of the entire building of the Mishkan. Because get this, okay, next week, a few weeks' time, we're going to read this. This week's Sedra is Hashem telling Moshe what to do. This is what the Mishkan is going to look like. In a few weeks' time, it actually happens, right? So get this. Shemot, Lamed Hey, this source here. Vayomer Moshe el kol hadas bnei Yisrael leimar, zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem leimar. Moses said further to the whole community of Israelites, this is what the Lord has commanded. And Kechu me'etchem, I have been instructed from God to take from you Terumah la Hashem kol nadiv liva yevieha es trumas Hashem zav kesef v'nechayses. Take from you gifts of God to the Lord, gifts to the Lord, everyone whose heart so moves him shall bring them, gifts for the Lord, gold, silver, and copper. Now the Kli Yakar here again, in a few weeks' time, in this verse here, he picks up on something. He says, what's Kechu me'etchem? Take from you. Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to take from you. I'm not going to take from, I don't know, the cows or anything. Who else? What does that mean? And also it says, kol nadiv liboy, anyone whose heart is generous. So I can't take something from someone who is trying to give this generously. It doesn't add up. And he says it's the same idea. What's the word kechu me'itchem? It's really take from you. You should be the one giving it. And he explains it beautifully. He says here, kliyaka, right? We have explained earlier that the words from you come to prohibit any stolen items from being donated. Sorry, I forgot this. There's the simple translation of the simple understanding of the word from you means that it should be yours. Don't steal something and try to donate it to the Mishkan. Fair enough. It has to be your property before you can donate it. Fine. But he says there's something else. He says the word from you also come to include the command that each person should motivate themselves in donating to the Mishkan. For there are people who won't give anything until they see others give and become jealous of them. Therefore, they give in order to equate themselves with those who have given already. This, however, is not considered from you. That's not you giving. Why? Because he is not the impetus behind the giving. Rather, it's the social pressure that causes him to give. Meaning, when it comes to the building of the Mishkan, it has to be you. You have to have this inner wellspring, this inner drive to give. That's pushing you to give. If you're just giving because everyone else is doing it, it's a lower quality. That's exactly the message that the Aron is giving us before. Where's the drive to give coming from? Is it coming from somewhere within? Is it coming from that inner gold that's inside you that you would do even if no one else was looking? That's quality. That's something we want donated to the Mishkan. But if you sit there and you watch everyone else giving and you think, oh, you know what? I'm going to look bad if I don't give. So you rock up with your massive donation and your incredibly generous gift. It's a lower quality. That's not what we're looking for. It's kechu me'itchem. If you're going to give, make sure that you're the reason you want to give. And it's not your neighbor, and it's not your friend, and it's not someone told you to do it. Make sure it's you. Make sure it's something that stems from within. And I think that what we've got onto here is it's a very powerful thing. The public pressure, the image, the drive to keep up appearances. It's something that, we all know far too well, unfortunately, and it's a very powerful force. I mean, I have an American friend, and he was telling me how there's these Pesach hotels, and I'm not saying anything bad against Pesach hotels, but they're very expensive, to go to this hotel and have catered food like non-stop for a week or two, all kosher for Pesach, and then you have activities and they have resorts and all of this, it will cost you sometimes like $30,000 starting. It's really, really expensive. And there are people who will go and borrow money from the bank, borrow money that they do not have. They'll borrow £30,000 or more to go to these hotels simply because everyone else on their street is doing it. And I'm not criticizing these people. I think it's a very real thing. There's a very real pressure from society that can influence your decisions. And we're at a risk of following people. We're at a risk of following others and creating this outer gold when there's nothing inside. That's the message of the Aron. And this is why also I don't like Instagram, because Instagram's full of followers. I don't want followers. I don't want people that are sort of mindlessly schlepping after me and copying what I do without a brain in their heads. I'd much rather have, 500,000 listeners or an audience of 500,000 people or friends, 500,000 friends, but followers, this sort of shuffling along and following the leader without any sort of motivation and drive from within. I don't know. I don't know. That's my particular. I'm very curious as to why Instagram called it followers. I don't know. Maybe Twitter's also followers, isn't it? Is Twitter followers? All right. So I don't like Twitter either. I like Facebook, and I like Facebook because of friends and WhatsApp because of contacts, and this is my gig. Anyway, but this is the message of the Aron. This is the message. The gold within is far more pure. And don't take my word for it. There's a very, very curious Gemara. Get this, all right? There's a holy man called Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and he's very sick, and he's about to pass away. And his students come in, and you can see it over here on the screen. It says, Omrula, Rabbeinu, our master, our teacher, Baruchenu, give us a blessing before you pass away. Omar lahem, he said to them, Yehi ratzon, it should be the will of God, shetehei mora shamayim aleichem, that you should fear God, k'more bosav adam, like you fear people. And they were stunned. We should fear God like we fear people? Surely it'd be the other way around. You fear people like you fear God. Amru lo tamid of adkan. They're like, what? This is your dying message. It doesn't even make any sense. Omar lahem, and he said to them, V'levai, ulavai, tedu. You should, I wish you could be meriting to such a level. Because you know, adam over avera, when a person does a sin, he says, Shelo yirani adam, I hope no one's looking. And this is the sort of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that we all suffer from. Because when things go wrong, and we're struggling, and maybe we're doing things we shouldn't be doing, we're just thinking, I hope no one sees. And that whole mentality, that whole perspective is coming from this need to keep up the golden outer box. It's the all-important veneer of what my life should be. You go back to Instagram, it's the photoshopped pictures, it's the filters. And the Aron is basically saying, like, hashtag no filter. I don't know if you can say that, but that's what it is. It's be you. Be genuine. Let the good things in your life come from a place where it's because you want to do them and not because there's someone watching or because you need to keep up appearances. That is the Zahav Tahor. That's the pure gold in the middle. Now, there is, firstly, Thomas Babington Macaulay. Does anyone know who that is? Nope. David, my last hope. Thomas, no, he was I think he lived in the 1800s. He composed the poem Horatio. Do you know the poem Horatio? About the man defending the walls of Rome? Oh gosh, I'm wasted on you lot.
Well, we know who Horatio is, but we don't know the poem.
Oh, so you got to look up the poem of Horatio. It's like 150 pages. It's unbelievably long. Whatever. So Thomas Babington Macaulay, he said the following thing, and I think this sums up in a very neat way what we're saying. The measure of a man's real character is what he would do if he knew he would never be found out. That's what it is. How can you know who someone is, who someone really is? It's if he doesn't know anyone's watching. Maimonides, when he speaks about the levels of charity, he says the highest level of charity is giving to someone and they don't know who you are and you don't know who they are. Meaning you don't get to walk around and see them and feel sort of elevated and yes, some sort of messianic complex about how you saved this guy. So you don't get that feel-good factor. And he doesn't know who he's benefiting from so that he doesn't feel bad. So that anonymity, that privacy makes the finest acts. It's the purest gold and it's the true measure of who we really are. Now, I think we already know this. I think we already know this from Sefer of Bereshis. I don't think we know it, but I think we know it. There's two characters who display very, very well and very subtly the difference between the outside gold and the inside gold. All right, hold tight. This is unbelievable, okay? Two of the greatest people in Sefer Bereshis, hands down, are Noach and Avraham. These are these are real pioneers in their own ways. These are the showstoppers. It's Abraham and Noah, okay? Now, Noach gets praised. Oh, here's Thomas Babington Macaulay over here. So Noach gets praised very highly. If you look at the top of the screen here, Eile told that Noach is tzaddik, tamim haya b'dorotav, et ha'elokim et halech Noach. Noach was a righteous man. He was blameless in his age, and Noach walked with God. That is high praise. You say someone who God walks with, you're a top G. You're fantastic, all right? Now, Avraham also gets praised, but this is another level. It says, Vayehi Avraham ben Tishim Shana, Vatesha Shonim, Vayera Hashem el Avraham, Vayom elav, Ani kel shakai, Hishalich lefonai, V'hiyei tamim. He doesn't say, or we don't describe Avraham as walking with God, like we describe Nayak. Avraham walks before God. It's almost like there's this gesture of respect. God says, no, please, after you. It's you go first, I'll follow behind. So clearly, despite Noach's very high level, Avraham trumps him. Now the question is why? Anyone, any thoughts? If you had to tell me why Avraham is better than Noach, what would you say? Any thoughts? Shoot. Fair enough. Nice. I don't know either.
Avraham was tested by God.
Ooh, Avraham was tested. Very nice. Very nice. The problem is this pasuk was said, as far as this pasuk was said before he finished the tests. But it's a nice thought. I didn't think of that. Fair enough. Okay, could be. I had a different answer. I had a different answer as to why Avraham beats Nayak. Okay, get this. We think of Avraham, firstly, as being the chesed man. He's the guy that does kindness. You think of chesed, you think of people that do nice things, it's Avraham. He does good things, and he set up a tent, which is basically sort of the first free cafe in the desert, and he's welcoming strangers and giving them what to eat. We think of him as the chesed man. I think that Nayak did something far more kind than Avraham. Because, pop quiz, all right? Trivia question. How long was Nayak in the Tava, in the ark, for? In the flood, he goes into an ark. How long is he in there for? Go. This is not a trick question.
1 year.
1 year? Not quite. A bit less. I think he was in there for 150 days. Well done, no one for saying 40 days. It rained for 40 days. He was in there for a lot longer. Now, he's in an ark with a bunch of animals, a load of animals, for 150 days. The Medrash tells us that Noach, by the time he came out of Tava, by the time he came out of the ark, was so exhausted that he was, I think, spitting blood. Why? Because bear in mind, you have nocturnal animals that need feeding at night, and then you have the daytime animals that need feeding in the day. And you have hundreds of species of animals that all need tending to. And Noach spent the entire 150 days running around that ark, feeding everyone day and night. In fact, he was only late one time. There was one time he came late to feed an animal. That was the lion. He came one time late to feed the lion, and the lion bit him on his leg so badly that he limped for the rest of his life. But that's how good he was. He never missed a beat, feeding a floating zoo for the best part of 4.5, 5 months. Not bad. I don't think Avraham ever did anything that intense in terms of kindness. And yet, Avraham's considered the kind, saintly man, and Nayak is second best. Why is that? And Rav Dessler says something mind-blowing. He says the difference between Avraham and Nayak is what happened on their day off. Think of it like this. Okay, yeah, I can't hold back. What happened on their day off, right? Nayak comes out the ark. He comes out the table. What's the first thing he does? I'll show you. This is in Bereshis. He's come out of the ark. He's saved the world. All the animals are back in place, and we're good to go. What happened? Vayita Korah. He planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and he uncovered himself within his tent. Nayak throws a massive party. He's done. I'm finished. We did it. 150 days. We saved all the animals. We're starting a brand new world. I'm off to have a drink. That was Nayach's day off. What was Avraham's day off? Avraham's day off is after his circumcision. He's day 3, the most painful day of his circumcision. And you think if there ever was a time to pull a sick day, that was Avraham. What's he doing? Parshas Vayera. Vayera alav Hashem be'elonei mamrei v'hu yosef pesach ha'el k'chol moyed. The Lord appeared to Avraham by the terebinths of Mamre. Points for anyone who know what a terebinth is. But whatever. He was sitting at the entrance of the tent. The day grew hot. Vayisa einav vayar v'hinei shleish anoshim nitzavim. Olav vayar vayaretz l'krosam mipesach ha'el v'yishtachu artzah. He saw 3 men standing, and he ran from the entrance of the tent, from his sickbed. He runs out because there's someone that I can host. He's not saying job done. He's not saying I did it. I deserve a day off. He is desperate. He's desperate to give. And that's the difference between Nayak and Avraham. It's true, Nayak sat on a teva and he tended to a bunch of animals for 150 days, but it was reactive. It was, I find myself in a situation that requires my attention, so I will apply myself. But as soon as the need to give goes, as soon as it's job done, I'm off to have a drink. Avraham doesn't stop. He can't stop. He's addicted to giving. He's a wellspring of giving. So yeah, he might be post-operation, really should be on bed rest. And guess what? Who is he talking to before the guest came? He's talking to God. He's having a conversation with God, but he sees an opportunity to give and he just drops it all and runs. It's much more inherent for Avraham. It's so far buried within him. It is so fundamental. It's so part of his psyche. He can't not give. That's the difference between Avraham and Nayak. If you wanted an analogy, it's like a business partner and an employee. An employee, at the end of the day, he goes home. He goes home, sits on the couch, watches TV. He's having a great time. A business partner doesn't switch off. He's so fully invested in the company. The company is him. He doesn't switch off like an employee does. This is, again, that reflection of the something within versus something without. It's the external and the internal. Nayak, it's an external thing. There's a situation that's encroaching on me, so I will react to that. Push back. But Avraham, it's inside. It's who I am. I can't stop. I can't change. I can't switch off. That's the Zahav Tahar. That's something that's so pure. You know, there's a story. I literally just heard it this week. I don't know who it was. There was this lady, and she's clearly some high-ranking or very successful entrepreneur. She's telling a story about this guy who started his own business out in Phoenix, Arizona. So he'd been an employee his whole life, and he decides he wants to start a business. So what does he do? He takes all his capital, and he rents himself an office, and he buys himself a desk, and he gets himself a chair, and he hires himself a secretary, and he's splashing the cash, and he hasn't made a single penny. And he spends all his money on an office and thinks, what do I do now? And this, it's funny, and we think it's stupid, but appreciate why. It's because he thinks an entrepreneur is someone who sits in a swivel chair with a fancy desk and a secretary out there who's going to bring him coffee in the morning. That's because he's fixated on that outer perspective. It's that outer public appearance. It's the gold on the outside. He doesn't realize that an entrepreneur is really something on the inside, and that results in an environment that looks like that. He's looking at it completely the other way around. That's a perfect example of someone who's internally oriented and someone who's externally oriented. It's what do you do first? Make money or buy the office? That's the difference. Now, this is arguably the thing I'm most excited about. Because I think it's just, listen to this, all right? Story time from the Gemara in Yoma. The best mum you've ever heard of in your life is showing up. The best Jewish mum ever, right? Tonu Rabbanon, our rabbis taught us, there was Shiva Bonim Hoyu Lekimches. There was a lady called Kimches, and she had 7 sons. And guess what? They all became high priests in the Bet HaMikdash. Not bad. You know, Jewish mums want their sons to be lawyers and doctors and also high priests, all right? Every single one of her sons was a high priest. And the rabbis came to her, stumped. And they said, Kimches, mate, how are you doing this? Teach us your ways. How are you doing this? So she says, I will divulge the secret. I will tell you how it is all my kids are so amazing. She says, Mi yomai, in all my days, never did the walls of my house see kale sa'arai, sorry. Now, there's various interpretations of what that means. Some say it means her hair. Nachmanides says it means that she was always dressed formally. And there are various interpretations, but bottom line is, she was a very modest person. And so because of her modesty, she was merited to have incredibly pious kids. Now, the rabbis are not having any of this. You know, we're a tricky bunch. They said, nah. Amru la, harbe asu came. Many people did this. V'lai ha'ilu, and it didn't work. So that's not the secret. Now, the strangest thing is that after the rabbis have said this to Kimches, the Magen Avraham, who is a halachic authority, says, you know what? This is actually a good thing to do. The question is, why is this a good thing to do? They just refuted it. They just said it doesn't work. And somehow it's brought down as a code of good conduct. It's best practice to do this, even though it doesn't work. So what's going on? And my rabbi, he told me the most brilliant thing. He said, you're not reading it properly. The rabbis respond to her, harbe osu came. There are many people who did this. They went through the motions. It wasn't something internal. It wasn't something fundamental to them. They just did it. They were playing dress up. And that's what didn't work for them. They're not criticizing her. They're not saying that what you did doesn't work. They're saying it worked for you because it was internal. But Harbe also came. All the people who just did it and went through the motions and didn't actually internalize what they were doing, that's for whom it didn't work. This is exactly what we're talking about. Why are you doing it? If you're dressing piously, if you're acting piously because you just want your kids to be good, or the neighbors are watching, or you need to maintain a certain standard or prestige in the community, whatever it is, it's not going to work. It might be gold. You know what? It might even be gold. It might be a good thing to do. We have a concept of doing something for the wrong reasons will eventually lead you to do it for the right reasons. But the bottom line is, what's the purest form of service? What's the purest activity? It's when it's coming from you. That's the pure gold on the inside of the Aron. That's what's pure. But if it's for public appearances, I don't know. Are you the employee who just wants to sit in a nice office? Or are you the partner? Are you the Abraham who just can't switch off? And that is what we're kicking off today's session with. And that is the message of the Aron. I think that's proper special. Yeah. Let's go on, unless anyone has any comments or questions, to part 2. What do we think, folks? No questions? Brilliant. All right. Part 2. We have another question. We are talking, Hashem is talking to Moshe. You know, he's saying to him, listen, we need to make this Mishkan, we need to make this tabernacle, and we're going to need a certain amount of things, a certain amount of materials to work with, all right? Now, here's what I need you to get. Here's the shopping list I need you to collect from the Jewish people. These are the things you're going to have. Gold, silver, and bronze. Copper, sorry. Now, can you notice a trend in those 3 items, gold, silver, and copper? Is there a sort of a trend there that you're picking up, anyone?
Going down in value.
Precisely. It's going down in value. So what it seems to be here, there's a statement of intent. We're going from the most valuable down, all right? And I think this follows on with the next few verses. Utachelet, which is a blue or green. Just for the record, this translation I don't think is phenomenal, but it's good enough. It says blue, purple, crimson yarns, fine linen, and goat's hair. So that's the next thing on the list. And these dyes, you know, dyeing things back in the day wasn't a phenomenally easy thing. And yeah, you know, it used to be that the royalty, the reason why we have a color called royal blue was because the color blue was a very hard color to come by in terms of the dye. So it was reserved for royalty. So blue, to start off with, is a very expensive color. Colored materials were at a premium back in the day. What's next? Tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood. Now, I don't know of a single classical commentary that translates Techoshim to be dolphins. You got to ask yourself, like, where are the Egyptian Jews getting dolphin skin from? Most of the commentaries that I've seen, and modern Hebrew, by the way, a tachash is a sort of porpoise dolphin thing, but it's just not what it's talking about. So tachash, they refer to as it was a creature that we don't have anymore, but it was sort of like a goat with one horn that had a multicolored skin. So it was a very unique type of animal we don't have anymore. But so you have gold, silver, copper, that's the most expensive metals. Then you have dyed products, and then you have wood and animal skins. So, and then last of all, you have oil, spices, and all these other things. So there seems to be a general decrease in value. We start with most expensive. If this was an ASDA shopping list, it sort from prices high to low. Then we have a problem. And this is a big problem, because the next thing on the list is the Avnei Shoham, the lapis or iapus, lazuli, no, never heard of them, and other stones for setting, for the ephod, and for the breastpiece. Now these are diamonds. Now let me tell you, folks, let's do some quick maths here. These are not just any diamonds. These are something special. Okay, before we find out how expensive these are, quick thought experiment for you, okay? Let's say I'm going to pick on Wendy, all right? Wendy, your mum is at home asleep, and she has a key to a certain room in your house. You're hosting her, she's asleep upstairs in your house, and she's got a key under her pillow. And that key opens a door in your house to your computer, your laptop. Okay, so your laptop is locked in a room, the key's under your mum's pillow, and she's asleep. Someone knocks on the door, says, Wendy, you're amazing. I want to have your laptop. I'm going to pay you £1,000 for your laptop. Would you wake up your mum, get the key, and open the door?
No.
Okay, £2,000.
I probably wouldn't do it.
I'm going to give you £400,000. It's here, literally right here.
I think you're asking a hypothetical question, but I don't think I'd wake her up to do it. I'd probably have a spare key in my room.
Ah, Wendy. Fantastic. So the Gemara tells a story, and this is where we're going to appreciate just how valued these stones were. The Gemara tells a story, all right? Right. This is in the Gemara in Kiddushin. These students, Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel, they came to Rabbi Eliezer and they said, to what extent does kibbud of ha'im go? You know, like, what's the limit here? He said to them, go out and see ma'asa nochri echad, what a Gentile did, la'oviv, to his father in Ashkelon. V'dama ben Nesina shemai. His name was Dama ben Nesina. So he's called Dama, and he's the son of Nesina, who is presumably sleeping. Bikshu mimenu chachamim. And the rabbis heard that this man called Dama, he somehow had in his possession the stones, the diamonds that belong to the ephod, to the breastplate of the high priest. And they said, we want to buy these stones off you, b'shishim riboy, for 600,000 sachar, 600,000 zuz. For Rav Kahana Masne, and Rav Kahana, when he told this story, he said b'shmainim riboy. It was actually 800,000 zuz. And his father was asleep, and the key to where those stones were kept was under his father's pillow, and much like Wendy, he refused to wake up his father. So these stones are worth 600 or 800,000, was it dinar? How much is 800 or 600,000 dinar? So I did the maths. Let's work it out, all right? Thanks to my sponsors at Wikipedia and Google. It turns out that the dinar is issued by the Sasanian Empire in Persia. Now, its composition is of silver, and each coin is 3.79 grams, all right? So we basically need to work out how much 600,000 silver coins weighing 3.79 grams is in today's currency, and we will work out how much they were willing to pay for these stones. So it turns out a kilo of silver is roughly 538 pounds. So you have 3.97 grams times 600,000, if you're going with that version of the story, is 2.3 million grams, which is 2.3 thousand kilos, and 2.382 thousand kilos of silver is 1.281 million 516 pounds. And if you're going to say that it's 800,000, and that's what they were willing to opt to say, you're looking at a price of 1,708,688 pounds. Personally, I would have been tempted to wake up my dad, but let's keep that between us. So this is how much these stones are worth, and they're coming at the bottom of the list. What's going on here? How does this work? Now, it's not my question. The Orach Chaim asked this question, and he says that, why was it as I'm going to try, I can't highlight it, but they should have been listed even ahead of gold and silver, seeing as they are of superior value. So why are these diamonds, that are so expensive, coming in last in the race? Perhaps the reason is that the princes who contributed these stones did so only after the people had contributed all their donations. So they basically sat back, and these princes said, you know what? It's true, we have a drive, and the whole nation is donating stuff to the Mishkan. We're going to sit here, we'll work out what it is that we're missing, and after that, we'll cash in, and we'll see what will fill the gap. And because that was a bit of a lazy attitude, so that's why Hashem listed their gift last. Fine. Meaning the Avnei Sham, the Avnei Meluim, these diamonds were given by the priests, and the priests were slightly lazy. So because they were slightly lazy, they were coming in last. Now the question is, they're not really being lazy. They want to give, but they're gonna they're the guys that say, I'll cover all your shortages. That, I think, it's not lazy. If anything, they're signing themselves up to maybe give more than anyone else.
It's a bit like a match charity campaign.
Exactly. I was literally thinking this. It's like a matching campaign. They're the donors, you know. They're the ×2 or ×3 guys. So it's a bit harsh, no, to accuse them of being lazy, no. And this is, by the way, you ask people why this is. This is what they'll tell you. This is the classical answer. And I'm surprised. I just heard very recently, there's another answer here, which I find to be much more compelling. Why was it that these are the cheapest things donated to the temple, the Mishkan? Get this. We have to understand, where did these stones come from? Where are they from? Where did they get such valuable gems from?
Egypt.
So it's not true. I would have thought that. And they definitely got valuable stuff from there. In fact, I don't know. I would even challenge that. I would say, because we know when it says they left Egypt, they have Zahav, Kesef, Usmolis. They had gold, silver, and clothing. It doesn't actually mention they had diamonds. Could be they got them after the sea came down on the Egyptians. Could be they got the diamonds then. But apparently that's not where they got them from. I would have been with you. But the Gemara says they got it from somewhere else. The Gemara in Yuma says, I'll just do it in English. The rule, I'll do it here. The Haim of Yolav Oina Dava Baboika Baboika. My Baboika Baboika, Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmeni, Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Midava Sheyard Lehem Baboika Baboika. Where did the princes get these jewels from? It was from something that came every morning. Melamed, to teach us. Sheyardu Lehem Li Yisrael Avonim Toives Umargolias Im Hamon. We know the Jews were fed miraculously by the manna in the desert. And it's not just food that came down. They got these diamonds from something that came down with the mon. It rained down every day, not just miraculous food, but money, literally money raining from the sky every day. Therefore, they come to the Mishkan, and they're donating these stones. And Moshe says to them, and he's standing there and everyone's shuffling past with their gold and silver and their dyed skins and whatever it is. And the Nesiim come in last. And they say, Moshe, don't worry, we got you. We let everyone go first. We've got the most expensive thing that anyone's donated. 1.7 million coming in right now. We're the charity ×2 donors, whatever it is. And Moshe says to them, oh yeah, really, what you got? And they, ta-da, it's a bag full of diamonds. So Moshe says, where did you get them from? And they said, well, we got it from the sky. It comes down every day and we just collected it. Says Moshe, that is the least valuable gift that anyone's given. Why? Because you didn't work for it. You're not attached to this. Think about that poor guy down the block who parted with his last little thread of crimson to give to the Mishkan. It might not be worth anything, but that is worth so much more in God's eyes than diamonds that you've rocked in having picked up off the floor 5 minutes before. If you've worked for it, it's valuable. If it's something that you're attached to and you've parted with it, it's valuable. But something you didn't work for, something that you've just picked up on the way here and given in, it doesn't matter, it's market value. There's a value on a personal level. That's what we're looking for. We don't need money in the Mishkan. We're not looking for, a market value. We have a lot of assets. It's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people to give with their hearts, give something that's meaningful to them. That's what the holiest place in the world is going to be made of, not market value. That's why it's the least valuable. That's why it's the last on the list, because it's the least valuable. Now, we do see this somewhere else. And before we get to exactly how this is brought out, I need to ask you a question. We have a law in Judaism that you're not allowed to sell something for more or less than its market value. Sorry, more or less than a sixth of its market value. So if you have something that's worth £6, you can't sell it for more than £7. Fine. Now that is a very complicated rule made simple, but that's the basic premise. Now, let's go all the way back to Bereshis. We have the famous encounter with Jacob and Esau. Now, Esau comes in and he's hungry, he's tired, and he wants to eat. And he sees Jacob making soup. So he says to Jacob, "Hello, Jacob, give me some soup." And Jacob says, "I'll give you soup if you sell me your birthright." Now, bear in mind, the birthright, folks, is the opportunity to serve in the Holy Temple. It's the opportunity to bring sacrifices. It's the opportunity to have your descendants be of the holiest group of people that walk the planet. And Esau says, "Done, fair play. All right, I will trade that privilege, that spirituality for all eternity for a bowl of soup." And Jacob says, "All right, fair enough. Done deal," shake hands, and that's it, transaction done. Now, let me ask you, we have a principle, we're not allowed to sell anything for more or less than a sixth of its market value. So how did the sale stand, even Jewishly? How did that work? You've grossly, overcharged your soup. Your soup isn't worth that. I'm sure it was really good lentil soup, I'm sure it was like top bill, but it just doesn't make sense. There's no way you can sell something of that magnitude and significance for a bowl of soup. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, who was the Rosh Hashiva of the Mir, or a big rabbi in the Mir, he says that it actually makes perfect sense because you're missing something. It says, the last verse here, "V'Yaakov nosan le'Esav lechem unazid adoshem." He gives him his bread, he gives him his lentil soup, "Vayochal vayesht," and Esau, he drinks it, he eats it, he drinks it, he gets up, he goes outside, "Vayivez Esau es ha'bocher." And again, I don't like this translation here because vayivez they've translated to be to spurn. I don't think that's accurate. It doesn't really mean to spurn, which is more to which means to reject. It really means that he degraded it. Like a bizayon is like a shame. It's sort of, he disrespected it, I think would be a good word. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, there's a phenomenon with spirituality that you dictate how important your mitzvah is. It's up to you. When it comes to spirituality, there is no objective value to how much a mitzvah is worth. It's how much do you value it? And that's how much it's worth. So Esau, he comes in and his birthright to him, he values it. He thinks that it's a fair trade, that yeah, this birthright is probably worth it for a bowl of soup. That dictates its value. That makes it the value that it has. And therefore it does become worth a bowl of soup. And it is a fair transaction. But Jacob, when he gets that birthright and he respects it, he treats it with the gravity that it really is owed, its value then reverts to what you'd think it would be. But get this is how it works. When we have a mitzvah, if you take a tiny mitzvah, washing your hands when you wake up in the morning, kissing the mezuzah, it's not, we don't think of that as like Yom Kippur levels. We don't think of it as like being Shabbat or Rosh Hashanah or blowing the shofar or all these things. But the truth is, it could be if we treated it with that much respect. So when the Nesiim come in, when the priests come in with their stones, there's no concept of market value anymore. It's how much have you invested? How valuable do you see it? How important to you is it in your eyes? Because that's what's going to make it valuable. That's what's going to make it important. There's no concept of market value. The Mishkan isn't created with valuable objects. It's made of meaningful objects. How much does it mean to you? Is it important to you? And this brings us all the way back to the Aron. Because it's that inner box. That's what makes it valuable. That's what makes it important. If you're giving, like these priests were accused of giving, just, off the cuff, it's everyone else is giving and we've got something at home, so we'll chuck it in as well. It's less valuable. And it is less valuable because you treat it as less valuable. And so it literally becomes less valuable. Anything you give with that external mindset will end up being the last on the list of the materials. Because you know what? You haven't treated it with the proper respect. You haven't given it, or you haven't created for it that value. The Mishkan, the holiest place of the world, isn't made of valuable objects. It's made of meaningful objects. And if you're giving because everyone else is giving, it's just not meaningful enough. And just to wrap things up, I heard the most amazing story. And this, for me, I honestly, like, between you and me, I tear up when I think of this story. Come on, second. There was a gentleman from Bnei Brak, grew up in a very, very religious home. And as he got older, he just decided to depart from his Judaism. And he went completely secular. And he'd gone from like the most ultra-Orthodox home to a completely unaffiliated person. And he got engaged to a non-Jewish girl. And he knew that his parents would be heartbroken. So he comes back home and he decides that he's going to come home for a Shabbat. He's going to spend the Shabbat with his parents. And after Shabbat, he's had hopefully what is an enjoyable experience with his parents, he's going to break the news to them that he's engaged and planning to marry a non-Jewish girl. And he knows that that's going to be heartbreaking for them, but he figures, I'm going to have to tell them. So Shabbat afternoon, I mean, this guy hasn't kept Shabbat while he's at his parents, he's not religious at all, but his dad knocks on the door and he's, doing whatever he's doing. And his dad, he hasn't been to synagogue, nothing. And his dad says to him, do you want to come to a talk by Rabbi Steinman? And Rabbi Steinman was a phenomenal leader of the time, really the greatest man of his generation. And this boy said, okay, why not? And he goes to listen to this talk by this great man. At the end of the talk, the dad brings over his son and introduces him to this great man. And this great man and this boy had a conversation. And this boy walked out and decided that he's going to break up with his fiance and he's coming back and he's going to become more religious. What the conversation was, we have to talk about another time. But that's what happened. Now, he told his story. He shared his journey. And now he's a religious person. And in the audience, someone asked him, I don't understand. You're a completely secular, unaffiliated person. Why on earth, on a Shabbat afternoon, did you agree to go and hear a talk from a spiritual leader? Why did you do that? I mean, yeah, it led you to the conversation that brought you back to your Jewish roots, but why did you do that? Like, you completely disconnected. Why are you going to that talk? Because I have to tell you a story as to why. When we were in primary school, we were young kids. Our teacher brought us to this rabbi. They were talking 25 years before. He brought us to this rabbi, and everyone was going to get asked a question by this great leader. And the teacher told this great leader, just ask them easy questions, and when they get the question right, give them a sweet. Fine. They go around the room, and he's asking really easy questions, and everyone's getting a sweet. He gets to me, and he asked me the question, and I didn't know the answer. So he asked me another question, which was even easier, and I didn't know the answer to that either. And then he asked me another question that was even easier, and I didn't know the answer to that either. And he went around the room, and everyone else got their sweets, and everyone else was filing out the room as the session ended, holding their sweets. And this great man pulled me aside, and he said, I want to give you 3 sweets. And this boy, 25 years before, said to him, why are you giving me 3 sweets? And this man said to him, it's not about getting the questions right. It's about trying to answer them. Everyone else tried to answer 1 question, so they get 1 sweet. But you tried to answer 3 questions, so you get 3 sweets. And he said, because of that story, 25 years later, as I was sitting completely disconnected from my Judaism, about to announce the engagement to my non-Jewish girlfriend, to my parents, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go hear what that man has to say. Because do you know what the beauty of that is? It's not the answers that get you the sweets. It's that drive to answer that gets you the sweet. That's the Zahav Tahar. If you want to know the answers because it makes you look good, you miss the point. But if you just want to try and try and try, it doesn't matter if you're not getting the stunning gold outside. You're not getting that stunning gold exterior. It doesn't matter. Is there inside a pure gold drive to just try? That's what's valuable. So remember, folks, it's the gold on the inside. The holiest place in the world is not made of valuable object, it's made of meaningful objects. Thank you all for coming.